In this lecture, we will discuss one of the most ancient, universal, and common social phenomenon found in every civilization, and that is prostitution. So, regarding that, in this particular leading case, Gaurav Jain, an advocate who filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court in the year 1988 regarding on the very flights of prostitutes children and their segregation from their mothers and rehabilitation of such children in reformatory homes and separate hostels and schools. And in that particular petition, the petitioners' arguments were on Articles 14, 15, Clause 3, Article 16, Clause 1, Article 21, 23, 24 of the Fundamental Rights in Part 3, then Article 38, 39, Clause F, Article 45 and 46 of the Directive of the Principles of State Policy of the Indian Constitutions were called for. Then the very provisions of the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956, then the Juvenile Justice Act of 1986, then the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights Act 1948 and the International Convention on Elimination of all form of discriminations against women are were called for, and the very issue and facts of this case was relating to prostitutes children and their rights and rehabilitation, and the very judgment of the petition filed in 1988 by the advocate Gaurav Jain was addressed by the Supreme Court in a judgment in the year 1989, and in particularly on the very issues relating to separate hostels and schools, then reformatory homes, and for that purpose they set up a committee, and the very report of the committee that we would like to discuss the very ratio and the final decision that was delivered on 9th July 1997 by a Supreme Court bench consisting Justice K. Ramaswamy and Justice D.P. Wada. Further, in interpreting prostitution, brothel, then the three is relating to counseling, cajoling, and coercion. Then the issues relating to self-employment, vocational training, and rehabilitation of the children. As Advocate Gaurav Jain filed a public interest litigation and sought the court's intervention to address the rights and rehabilitation of prostitutes in India. The petitioner sought a declaration affirming several fundamental rights for prostitutes, including freedom, protection from, and entrapment and socio-economic empowerment to ensure equality, dignity, and social integration. So the issues raised by the petitioner is regarding rights of prostitutes. The petitioner emphasized the need to recognize prostitutes as free citizens with the right to dignity, economic empowerment, social justice, and self reliance. The plea argued for measures to support their reintegration into society and protect them from being trapped again into the cycle of exploitation. The second issue that was raised regarding rights of children of prostitutes, building on the earlier case which was disposed in the year 1990 by the apex court. The petition addressed the plight of children, especially girls born to prostitutes, while the court had previously rejected the plea for separate hostels and shelters to these children. It acknowledged the necessity of segregating them from their mothers to shield them from harmful influences. And the third important issue raised by the petitioner also understood the broader aim of eradicating prostitution through systematic rehabilitation and reintegration efforts, focusing on ensuring socio-economic opportunities for women to break free from exploitative environment. So, the petitioner relied on various provisions of the Constitution of India, such as the provisions of Article 14, Article 15, Clause 3, Article 16, Clause 1, Article 21, 23, 24, Article 38, 39, Clause F, Article 45, and 46 of the Constitution of India, along with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. The very articles of the Universal Declaration, Article 1, 4, and 6, and the very Declaration of Rights of Child. The petitioner intended to shove out these provisions to point out that even such societal practices like prostitution were present in different forms throughout history, which were at times justified on religious grounds, as it is the case of Devadasis and Yoginis, or due to commercial interests. The very judgment delivered by the apex court, after analyzing various statistical data and the social realities, proposed solutions based on two main objectives. Through the Juvenile Justice Act, the court aimed to improve the lives of children associated with prostitution by categorizing them as neglected children. It identified causes such as family traditions, customs, illiteracy, coercion, poverty, ignorance, fear of social stigma, and even women from affluent backgrounds turning to prostitution for luxury. The court recommended setting of child development and care centers to support these children, managed in coordination with non-governmental organizations. Non-governmental organizations. It also encouraged voluntary initiatives to combat this social issue. The court suggested addressing prostitution through the Moral Traffic Prevention Act 1956. It proposed expanding the definition of prostitution by including the term abuse to cover acts against good order. The interpretation of brothel was broadened to include any premises where a woman offers her body for promiscuous sexual acts for money. The court clarified that even a single instance of such activity supported by circumstantial evidence would be sufficient to apply the law without requiring proof of repeated acts or actual intercourse. The judiciary recognized the grave issues of prostitution as a persistent social evil perpetuated through a vicious cycle. It observed that a prostitute, while serving her clients, often give birth to a child to cover the expenses of raising the child and ensuring their upbringing as a responsible citizen. She incurs significant debts from her clients. Ultimately, these unpaid debts are passed on to the child who grows up in the same environment and is compelled to follow in her mother's footsteps. To address this issue, the apex court or the Supreme Court of India emphasized the need for a comprehensive approach based on the three C's: counseling, cajoling, and coercion. This approach aims to enforce existing legislation and encourage voluntary initiatives to combat the problem, effectively preventing it from further eroding the social fabric. So, these are the findings from this important landmark judgment. Gaurav Jain vs. Union of India, when in 1988 a writ petition was filed by Gaurav Jain, citing the very plight of prostitute children and their segregation from their mothers and to keep them in separate hostels and schools or in reformatory homes. And in regards to that, in the previous judgment of 1989, the apex court established a committee, and on the basis of the report of the committee, it suggested such certain modification. And in regards to that, in the final judgment delivered in 9 July 1997, the very ratio decidendi of this case, where the apex court defined exactly what prostitution means and how it is continuing in historical context, then what is exactly brothel means and the very principles laid down by the apex court to maintain integrity and to rehabilitate the prostitutes and to reform the very atmosphere by counseling, cajoling, and coercion, and providing self employment and vocational training to those women engaged in prostitution due to illiteracy, poverty, and other different grounds, and further their rehabilitation, and also regarding the rehabilitation of the children of the prostitutes. So, this is one of the most important landmark judgments delivered by the Supreme Court on 9 July 1997 by the bench consisting Justice K. Ramaswamy and Justice D.P. Wada.